Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In this last one for the Sinister Syndicate update, I'm looking at Kraven, which is by far the worst of the three characters that got upgrades, since we didn't really get an actual Sinister 6 upgrade. It was basically just kind of a Sinister 3 update. The video isn't really that long because there wasn't too much to test for the character. He just really wasn't that good, as you'll see when the video starts. So to make it more interesting, I'm also doing a crystal coupon giveaway. To be eligible for that, you basically have to go to my Discord channel. You can find the link in the video description. Register there and then leave a comment on this video with your Discord name so that if you win, I know who to contact. Since the character was only T2 to start, I did a stage 99 of Thanos with just the uniform to see the damage output and the damage upgrade that it would provide. I finished stage 99 with about 30 seconds left, which wasn't really the best. Most of the modern upgrades and uniforms that have come out for characters that have been strong in PvE or just somewhat good have been able to complete stage 99 of Thanos without the T3 or Awakening, with I'd say about at least 60 seconds remaining. With the benefit of all defense down on his 5th skill that obviously ignores immunity and goes up to 50%, he's able to clear stage 99 of Proxima much faster than Thanos, finishing it within about a minute and 30 seconds, or with around 3 minutes and 30 seconds left. The stronger PvE characters can essentially complete this within 60 seconds with no damage proc, which is basically what I have for Kraven. I'm not using a damage proc either for the Thanos test or for this one, or for any of the further tests in this showcase. Even though the character has Ignore Dodge, Guaranteed Crit, and damage accumulation in his kit that would make him suitable for World Boss Legend, ironically enough, he ends up being better or the best in World Boss Ultimate content and basically falls flat on the rest of the content in the game. The reason why the character is most suitable in World Boss Ultimate as opposed to other game modes is because his low end damage isn't as much of a factor in this game mode, and because you can best utilize his greatest strength, which is that he can spam iframe ignore or invisibility simply by using the second skill over and over, which triggers his passive that provides the iframe ignore. The cooldown basically almost matches 1-for-1, so you can almost stay in permanent iframes and keep the boss just standing in place, despite the fact whether they are susceptible to CC effects or not, which includes characters like Thanos that are CC immune. You can see from the clear time of this fight that even with the Awakening damage increase and having the boss locked down almost permanently, it still took around 3 minutes to clear this fight, and was only about a minute and 30-second upgrade with that Awakening skill unlocked. The improvement versus Proxima is obviously less because he's essentially completing the stage in 60 seconds, but he really should have been able to complete it in 60 seconds even without the Awakening. So again, with the Awakening skill damage increase and the fact that he's still keeping the boss completely locked down, he should have easily been able to complete this in pretty much 30 seconds. The sad part about all of this is that unique feature where you can stay in invisibility or an iframe also works versus World Boss Legend bosses, but because his damage is so low, it doesn't really make a difference, and you will never really utilize him in World Boss Legend unless you are basically a new account, but then it doesn't make sense there either because you wouldn't get this character when you can get other ones that can push to way higher stages and are much better overall. If you're set on building this character for PvE, then a CTP of Rage is really your best option because you're going to be constantly spamming that second skill, not only to stay in that iframe, but also because it provides him a damage increase every time he uses it. Besides that, you're gonna be sort of delay canceling a lot of skills, and with the Guaranteed Crit in his kit, it really is the best option in terms of the synergy and the damage output that it provides. Realistically though, if you have this uniform or plan on getting it sometime in the far future, then you're more than likely going to end up using an insight on him since he has that support capability for the Sinister 6 characters, and isn't really suitable as a damage dealer himself. At this point, you probably don't care what the rotation is, but I'll tell you anyway. The one that I used is to do a 2 and basically just use that every time it's off cooldown. Then you do a 5 and you delay cancel that after he spins around and you see him visually throw the net up in the air. Then you do a 3 and delay cancel that slightly when you see the smoke kind of show up in the animation. And then you finish off on the 4th skill. With the Awakening, you would simply add in the 6th skill right after the 2nd skill so that the 2nd skill buff applies to the 6th skill, and then you just do the rest of the rotation. You can see just how sad his damage output is, because even on this standard stage 9 Knull test that I do with no leadership, supports, or damage procs, it took him about 3 minutes, or finished it with around 2 minutes remaining, whereas most modern character uniforms and upgrades now can basically do it with around 2 minutes and 30 seconds remaining, and the better ones can do it with around 3 minutes remaining. For reference, if you watch the Green Goblin video that I released just recently, his uniform from over a year ago was able to complete this about 15 seconds faster, and you might be thinking that, oh, but Kraven also provides a support. Green Goblin's old uniform not only provided a support but also leadership, so this really shows you just how much of a letdown this uniform is. I tested out his damage output in Alliance Battle Extreme as well, just to see if it was any different in score-based modes, but it was just as bad there. He was only able to score somewhere around 6.8 million, whereas most characters can easily score 8 million with no damage proc, especially given the setup that he had, which also included 2 other supports, and Black Cat's great leadership and support that she provides too. The main value that most players will likely get from this uniform if they decide to pick it up is to get a slight score increase in Alliance Battle Extreme on the Speed Villain Day, since he provides a little bit of a bigger boost for Green Goblin that is basically the new meta for that day. In my opinion, the biggest disappointment of this uniform is in his PvP performance. You would think that a character that can essentially stay in permanent iframe would be pretty useful in PvP. However, his survival is really low, his skill rotation is really poor, and his skill priority is somewhat low as well on skills that exclude his 2nd skill. So he basically instantly dies if he gets hit, and if the opponent has any kind of iframe ignore and possibly any kind of penetration attached to that iframe ignore, then he basically just explodes on contact. The one good thing is that the AI prioritizes the 2nd skill and uses it with high skill priority right off the start, so you go into an iframe right away, but then it proceeds to go into the 4th skill, which is kind of slow, and you'll probably end up coming out of the iframe and possibly dying or not doing enough damage with that skill. And in addition to that, the AI never prioritizes the 5th skill, which provides you with the invincible and healing, or the 3rd skill that provides you with the damage accumulation. I actually ended up trying an invincible build, but found that it didn't really help his survival in any way, because his base health is so low that he would often die before the invincible procced, and because he doesn't have any healing that activates from his skill rotation. As a result, the build that I would recommend is a Destruction by either proccing on the 2nd skill or the follow-up 4th skill, which will allow you to not only penetrate through the invincible that the opponent has, but also provide you with enough of a damage boost from the proc to be able to one-shot before they are able to whittle you down. Sadly, even with that, the character is really inconsistent, and the best use case for him would be versus mid-level characters to kind of the higher mid-level characters and basically non-meta characters. That's not to say that he can't take out any meta characters, but he will really excel versus opponents that have no iframe ignore or have a low skill priority, since they won't really be able to hit him before he takes them out completely. But regardless, that's hardly a reason to justify getting this uniform. His performance in Alliance Conquest wasn't really anything different. I tried to specifically target opponents that didn't have iframe ignore, but some of them still have pretty good skill priority and could still hit him, and the fact that he doesn't spam the second skill right when it's off cooldown means that he's not permanently in iframe and can potentially still be one-shot. Nevertheless, he is able to take out some good characters in Alliance Conquest, and because the character is an awakened character, once you reach that second team with that damage proc, you should be able to nuke them down pretty quickly. That pretty much summarizes Kraven. I would really not recommend you pick up this uniform. It honestly doesn't really do anything for him as a standalone, and even as a support, he's basically limited to just assisting the Sinister Six characters. Like many of the second thought characters and updates that are basically left to the wayside and aren't really pushed in a specific direction, they could have easily made Kraven better just by focusing on a specific game mode. If they wanted to make him for PvP, they could have made him do more damage, for example, if he was himself in iframe, or because he's a hunter, he could sort of kind of stalk his prey and deal more damage to opponents that are themselves in iframe, so that he has kind of a unique feature and a specific use in something like Alliance Conquest. Another route they could have gone in is to make his traps more interesting, so he could have just had his skills lay out a lot of different traps and have a huge penalty to the opponent, so it could be something like procs not activating or debuffs not working, or even have something like the opponent can't target your own team that are in iframes if they are in a poison cloud trap or something like that. There's tons of things that they could have done, but unfortunately we got another throwaway uniform that doesn't really put him in the spotlight in any way and doesn't really make the character anything special besides just actually playable now. Basically, avoid Kraven like the plague. If you have any thoughts on how the devs could maybe make some of these smaller characters that aren't the main focus of the update a little bit more interesting and not have to compete with damage, maybe make them more supports or kind of more unique for certain game modes, then maybe leave that as a comment in this video with your Discord name if you want a chance at some of those crystals. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe since it keeps me making videos if that is what you want to see. I do appreciate people taking the time to watch these, so thank you, but the video is now over.